Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Bucher, and I'm here to talk a little bit about a product that we've been building on the PowerShell team called AI Shell. I'll also be talking a little bit about AIOps, but honestly, the AI world is moving so fast that it's even hard for me to present about something and have it be still relevant. So we'll get to that later. I also I made a bet with someone to try to minimize how many times I can use the words AI in this conversation, and I think I've broken it about 5 times already. So we'll see how well I do for the rest of the session. But of course, thank you to our sponsors for this conference. They all do some wonderful work, and so definitely check them out in the downstairs area and chat with them to learn more about what they do and maybe how they can help your company or your work. So, yeah, like I said, little introduction. My name is Stephen Bucher. I am a product manager for Microsoft on the PowerShell team. I've been on the team a little over 3 years now, and actually, no, coming up on 4 years now. I maintain AI Shell, PS Readline module. I do the Microsoft updates for PowerShell, and I've lately been working a lot in the server management space. So if you'd like to talk to me about any of these things and more, please find me in the hallways. Please come up to me and let's just chat about how you've been using PowerShell. I also love to hear about folks' interest in PowerShell 7 inbox. Let's have a conversation. So this is my 4th PSConfEU, and this is the first one. I'm really excited to actually present about something that I've kind of created from start to finish, and so yeah, very excited to be here, and always happy to see familiar and new faces alike. So let's start off. So shells, how many can you recognize from this group? Do you recognize any of these? I'm sure everyone recognizes the monad and the PowerShell 5 one, but there's a lot of different shells out there. There's a lot of different commands. There's a lot of different command lists. There's a lot of different tools everywhere. But it has been a constant thing for decades now. The CLI is like the first thing you learn in computer science school, and it's very much a fundamental piece of coding, IT infrastructure, etc. But we've made an observation as of late, and it's that the prompt is fairly intimidating. At least for beginner users to the CLI and the shell, the black prompt with just a blinking prompt screen is a little bit scary. It's not intuitive. It's not as clear as a website where you can kind of say, oh, I click here to learn more, or click here to do something. It doesn't really have that kind of instructions. And of course, you guys are PowerShell pros, so you know a little bit, how to get this information on how to get things done with get help, man pages, etc., etc. But it's sometimes difficult to figure out what to do. There's also been an exponential growth of the number of commands that are being published out there. I mean, you heard me earlier this week say that every day there's 450 different packages published to the PowerShell gallery. Now, how many different commandlets and different commands there are in there, I have no idea, but I can imagine it's going to be a lot. And so just alone, we've done a little bit of math, and we'll maybe play. So Azure PowerShell has over 6,000 commandlets, and it's growing as well. Azure CLI has over 10,000 commandlets. Anyone want to guess how many commandlets Graph has? Anyone want to, rough numbers? Anyone want to shout out a number? Anything? 9,000? Over 9,000? Well, that's technically correct. It's over 50,000 commandlets. So who here has memorized all of them? Oh, yeah. No, but it's impossible to know what all these commandlets are doing. It's impossible to know exactly how to use all these different commandlets. And again, this is just a small set of the vastness of the different commands that you can use. Tab completion is helpful, but it's not always useful when it comes to more complex objects and more complex commands, especially modules and commandlets that are not well documented or not well explained. So it's difficult, that way. There's too many commands that begin with the same thing, so it's often difficult to figure things out that way. Also, the combination of parameters can get pretty complex, optional versus required, difficulty to identify value types. And so these are a lot of the problems that we've noticed that beginner CLI users use, but even some of the experts sometimes can need some help figuring out, where to get started at least. And then once they know where to get started, then they can really get accelerated in their workflow here. So here on the left, I know it's super, super tiny. This is the VM create Azure CLI commandlet, and it's about the same as the Azure PowerShell. And I don't know if you can see how many different parameters there are just in this picture alone, but there's actually a lot more. So it's really difficult to know exactly all the different permutations of parameters that you need to use for just creating a simple VM. So we're trying to help tackle this problem, and we've been trying to do this a lot with PowerShell over the years through its interactive process. I very much believe that the shell should be built to try to help you with tab completion, with inline help, et cetera, et cetera. But with the advent of AI, there's been a lot more. Dang, I said AI, but there's been a lot more assistance and more generalized ways that you can get started using PowerShell, using the CLI, etc. So why don't we just jump into some demos? I feel like it's best to just get started here. Let's make sure my machine is on. Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to open up my terminal here, and I know I will zoom in. Is that a little bit more readable for folks in the back? It'll start getting hopefully more readable. But we have created a simple PowerShell module called AI Shell that connects you to the power of AI directly into your shell here. So to get started, all you have to do is run start-AI shell, and a side pane will be opened up to the right here. And let me zoom this guy in as well. But this is kind of a familiar experience you may have seen in web interfaces, kind of a side chat experience, but we do a lot more than that. So we have two different agents that are kind of shipped with the tool. I'll talk a little bit about that more later, but why don't we just get started with my OpenAI agent. This is going to be the exact same as if I were to be calling ChatGPT on the web. There's no special training. There's no special grounding with this tool. I just kind of told it, hey, can you please be a PowerShell expert for me? And this is what machine I'm on. It's pretty simple. So, but it's really good for helping me get started with some generalized commands. And although I am on the PowerShell team, I often get tripped up with some little syntax errors or some little issues when it comes to filtering, when it comes to sorting, when it comes to just some syntactical things. And this is really good at helping me remember and get started with those things. So I can ask it any sort of question I want. Let's do something like, show me what files are greater than or equal to 10 megabytes in the My Files folder in this directory. So it's calling out to my Azure OpenAI instance, and it's going to get back a response for me. It's going to format things kind of in a more shelly way, and it's going to give me a breakdown of the command and explain to me a bit more about what each part does, kind of separated by the pipeline here. And so this is great. Okay, I knew how to use getChildItem, but I always get mixed up on the where object thing. And like I said, it's sometimes tricky. I, of course, now can copy and paste this command here into my working shell. So we've directly separated your AI shell from your working shell here. So all the work that's going on the left is the normal experience you get from terminal. We're not really editing, we're not really changing anything for you, but on the right, you're talking to AI, and it's going to be generating those commands. We recognize that the commands that AI can generate can potentially not do what you want and lead to some maybe unexpected places and unexpected scenarios. And so we want to make sure you had a clear division of when you're talking to AI and when you're talking to the shell, at least for this first iteration. But like I said, I can copy and paste it. I want it to run it. I can do that. But what we do have is a number of chat commands that we have in this shell here that I can help me interact with the code that's been generated. So I can run a command it all starts with a slash. So I can do /code post, and this is going to post the code that I got generated in the shell, in the AI shell, into my normal PowerShell session here. And so now I can actually run it and see, okay, yeah, it found a bunch of the files that I had created previously that happened to be exactly 10 megabytes. Who would have guessed? But it's a great way for me to kind of work my flow in. I can see the description of what's going on before I run it, and then I can see the output and stuff. And so it's super helpful that way. And of course, it can help me with more complicated things like, can you show me the running services that include the name Microsoft somewhere in it? So it can help me a little bit more with, get service and some of this stuff. I can type out /code copy again, or code post again, but I'm just going to use a hotkey. I'm going to Control D, and it's going to post this here, and it's going to show me all the running services I have that include Microsoft in it. So you can see I got a bunch of Intune, a bunch of Corp stuff, DevBox, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a good way for, if I know what I'm trying to get, but I don't necessarily know how to, my first step would be to go to Google, right? And say, I need to figure out what Microsoft services are running on my computer. You'll probably be able to find it pretty easily. This way you can just stay directly in your shell and get assistance right here at a click of a button, and don't have to context switch as much. But there's a lot more we can do. And so what I can do too is interact with the AI shell as my companion as I'm working in my PowerShell session here. So we have a number of different commandlets to help you interact with the code that's being generated here. So what I can do is I can let's do this. Yeah. So not only is it good for helping generate commands for me, it's also great at helping me resolve errors. So let's just take a very simple example. I'm going to clear the screen here and say, hey, get process. And you can see predictive intelligence is actually helping me. I want to count how many processes there are. And for whatever reason, my brain tells me this is going to work. Will this work? No. Yeah, it's not going to work. And so, PowerShell, we try to help you by finding what similar commands there are available for you. But if I get a more complicated PowerShell command, I want to try to resolve it quickly. And so what I can do is type the command resolve-error. Oh, if I can type, which will take the PowerShell error and send it to AI shell, and it says, okay, this is your error. Let's try to fix it. And so it's going to now give me a fixed commandlet and an in-depth explanation of what's going on. So as a new PowerShell user, this is really helpful for me to get started. Even if you have encountered an error that you're not really sure about and you want to get some AI assistance, this can help you as well. Yeah, let's show off a couple of get command module AI shell. So we only really have three commandlets for this tool. Start AI shell, which starts the shell experience. Resolve error, which I just showed you, that resolves any last error that you had encountered. And then we also have invoke AI shell. So I mentioned before that we were kind of designing this in the mind of you having a colleague with you kind of looking over your shoulder as you're typing, trying to help assist you and explain things to you and help you learn and up-level your command experience. And so you can kind of treat the side pane as a help window in a certain sense. And so one way you can do that is use the invoke AI shell command. And so this keeps you always in your left context, so you don't have to keep switching around and losing focus. So if I say invoke AI shell, what is the command to show my disk space and show it to you in free gigabytes? It will send the command to the right here and give me the information here. I don't really want to copy and paste it again because that seems pretty big. I don't want to accidentally flub my fingers or click over here, but it's giving me a good explanation of, hey, here's the PS drive, select object, and it does a bunch of math calculations for me for gigabytes, and then it rounds up some of the explanations here. So that's great. I'm going to scroll back up so I can see the command. What I can do is, in my normal shell, I can just go invoke AI shell dash postcode. This is going to take the command and post it right after my next one. So now I can just run and hit enter and run and get my response back. So I can keep working in this flow without interruption. What I can also do is there's a number of other kind of commands to do. Is it copy code? So it will copy the code here to my clipboard here. And so now I can paste it and get the same exact experience. I'm going to not run that again. But we have a couple other ways that you can interact with the code here. We have a bunch of help commands, or excuse me, we have a help for the slash commands here where you can learn more about switching agents, clearing the screen, treating it like a normal shell, getting help, refreshing, retrying, etc. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things to begin with. Some of the other agent stuff a little later here. So let me switch back to my slides for a moment. Oh, come on. It likes to swap to my Windows VM for whatever reason, so it takes a moment to think through. There we go. Okay. So I wanted to take a moment to kind of outline what we just saw with AI Shell. It is a cross-platform tool, so it works in PowerShell on Windows and PowerShell on Mac OS. Linux is not technically supported, but there is a kind of a workaround with it. But Mac OS and Windows is primarily where we're looking at. I'll show you even here. Let's see, where is my, oh, come on, screen. Here is my iterm2 command. I'm on a Mac right now. I'm in PowerShell, PS, PowerShell 5.1. I'm going to run start AI shell. And it's actually going to open up a side pane just like the Windows terminal experience, and you'll get the exact same experience on Mac as well. I'll just type something here just so you can, oh, wrong. But it's here to help assist you on Mac and Windows as well. So I wanted to just highlight that. Okay. Oh, come on. Give it 1 second. There we go. So yeah, a little bit about the user experience. Like I said, we have this sidecar experience, and we have the meta language, which is kind of the chat experience, and the interactions between the sidecar and the primary shell are really where we're focusing a lot of our value in, how we can best give you the assistance right there at your fingertips very easily, very quickly, and not feel interrupted or feel like you're context switching all the time. Yeah, and so there's client, it's basically a client for different AI agents. And so this is where I want to talk about kind of the first startup where we had 2 agents selected to us. We had a OpenAI GPT one, and then we had an Azure one. And in fact, it's completely extensible. So you can think of these agents as PowerShell modules that you can actually create your own experience for AI Shell to connect to your own AI provider, or have it do some other actions to create a more workable agent that way. We have a whole lot of documentation on creating an agent at aka.ms/AI Shell create an agent. Like I said, you can kind of think of them as PowerShell modules. They are in fact DLLs kind of in the back end. You write them in C#, but I don't have enough time today to really dive into that. But if you're curious, come up and talk to me and find their documentation online. But yeah, let's go back to the screen here. I'll go back to my terminal here. I'm going to run start AI shell again and just pause kind of in the beginning here now. This is the different agents. We ship with 2. My goodness. Why is it always stuck on my... Give me 1 second here. And my computer is frozen. The mouse was there? Okay, I'm just going to minimize my windows. I think that's what's been messing it up. And it's also the PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, that's what I wanted. Sorry about that. I'm going to just start this up again. So you can see here at startup, we get a selection of two agents. The first one is to talk to OpenAI or OpenAI compatible models, and the second one is the Azure one. The OpenAI one is what I showed earlier to you. This is compatible with any OpenAI compatible models. And so that's not exclusively OpenAI. If I go back to my screens here, I'm actually not going to completely go full screen again just to not mess up the screen sharing, but essentially the OpenAI providers, you can use OpenAI, of course, ChatGPT, GPT-4o, GPT-4 Mini, etc. You can use Azure OpenAI, which I'll be talking about a little bit, which is your own instance of these models that you can deploy to Azure and manage and control. You can use even Google Gemini, Grok, Ollama, which is a local LLM or SLM provider, and you can use a lot more too, but just wanted to call out that this agent actually has a support for a vast variety of different AI providers. We have documentation on how to configure that, but I'll show that here a little bit now. So this, you may have noticed it's called OpenAI-GPT. Now, what does GPT mean? Of course, that is the here you hear that in ChatGPT, but there's this concept of GPTs, which are packaged pieces of modules here. And so I'm actually going to go to agent config, run agent config here, and it's going to open up a configuration file for me. This is the different GPTs I have registered with this tool here. And so you can see here I have 4 different ones. Where's my cursor? I have one that is a key-based Azure OpenAI instance, and I've deleted all my keys, so I don't feel stressed right now. We have one for public OpenAI, which is just talking to the OpenAI instance that you'd buy the $20 a month for or whatever. And then we have also Google Gemini here. You can see that on line 23. And then we're using this one here, the AZ Entra GPT-4o. And you can see here at the very bottom, it shows the active GPTs. So these are the different kind of packages that packaged models that I can do. I can have different models that are used for the AI reasoning, and I can also have different system prompts in different authentication. So you can kind of choose what works best for you. It's very flexible. It's very extensible. But the really cool thing about Azure OpenAI is when I deploy my own GPT model, I can use Entra ID for it. So I don't need to use keys and stuff. I can use my Entra ID if I have access to it via Entra ID. I can have it here, and I don't have to worry about showing any keys or storing any keys in plain text files. So that's why I feel so confident being able to share this, guys, with you. So there's nothing dangerous here. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Azure OpenAI. Has anyone familiar with AI Foundry with the Azure Cloud? Anyone heard of that before? A little bit, just make conversation perhaps. The AI Foundry is a resource that you can actually deploy in Azure where you can have a variety of different deployments. Think of it as having your own model, but staying in your cloud. So you can have your own resource here. So in the AI Foundry here, this is kind of their, this is my deployment for Azure OpenAI. I can go to deployments here, and you can see here, I've actually deployed my own instance of GPT-4o. I've deployed a bunch of other text embedding ones, and I've even done a trained one myself. But this is a great way for you to be able to feel more secure about any data that you've been sending to these models. You have full control of the data. You have full control of the content proposals. You have full control of the limits and things like that. So if you're interested in trying out GPTs, some of the models, I would definitely encourage you to check out the AI Foundry or Azure OpenAI. Both words are kind kind of synonymous. They keep changing the names over the couple months. That's why I keep bouncing back and forth. So I apologize. But this is where you can control and much more easily access these highly advanced models, but keep things secure and within your environment there. So yeah, like I said, Azure AI Foundry, also known as Azure OpenAI. Manageability is great. Selection of models. You can do a bunch of content safety and security, quota management, train the models with your data. This is also where it gets really exciting too, where you heard in the keynote all about RAG and all about like kind of grounding these models towards, data that you want. And so this is a great way. They have a really cool way to be able to provide your own data and fine tune and train these models very, very easily. I did this with a bunch of Docker commands where I was able to find a bunch of Docker CLI commands online, and I actually trained a model to really become a Docker pro for me, just as a proof of concept. But you can apply any sort of data that you like and keep it grounded and have it assisted with you. For example, you could even take your company's, PowerShell scripts and stuff, fine tune a model to know a lot about those, and then have AI Shell be used to provide those commands very easily for you there. Ensure your data stays with you. That's, I think, a key value for this product itself. Like I said, key-based or entra-based authentication. Yeah. And I see I am running short on time, so I'm going to jump over to the other agent. So that was a little bit about the OpenAI agent. The other agent is the Copilot in Azure agent. So who's familiar with the Copilot in Azure? Has anyone used that before in Azure? It's the side pane there. Well, so we're bringing the same exact experience for the Copilot in Azure directly into your CLI, directly into AI Shell. You heard me in the beginning say that Azure PowerShell and Azure CLI combined have over 16,000 commands. That's too many. And so it's difficult to know everything that you need to do with it. And so we've created this agent to help you specifically with generating Azure CLI and Azure PowerShell commands and just general Azure knowledge. So if you have questions about Azure, questions about, hey, how big is this, SKU going to be for my VM, or how, what are the different kinds of regions available to me in the US? You can ask those kind of questions. It gives more in-depth, commands usage and guidance. You can set your own parameters very easily, so it's a much more easy flow to get things suggested. It has knowledge of end-to-end scenarios, so you can feel a little bit more confident about completing an end-to-end, hero scenario with Azure PowerShell or Azure CLI. Another big thing, responsible AI is a huge thing for us at Microsoft. So no personal or company data is ever reused with the Azure agent. So you only save your data if you consent to us using it through a like and dislike command. But let me jump over a little bit to the demo again. So I'm in my GPT agent here. I'm going to clear the screen. It's just like a kind of a normal shell here. I'm going to say, hey, at Azure, I'm going to swap over to my Azure agent. And you can see here, it gives me a bunch of examples. It gives me a bunch of terms, etc., links. So I can ask it questions on how do I create a resource group with AZPS. And so it's going to go out to the Copilot in Azure. Oh, and this is completely free, by the way. So you can download AI Shell and get started with this right away. There's no pre-configuration. There's no anything that you have to do prior to it. All you have to be is logged in with an Azure account via Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell. So you can get started pretty much straight away with this. You can see here it gives me a PowerShell command here. Let's see what it's doing. Create the resource group and then remove the resource group. I'm not sure why I want to do that, but that's at least part of the problem. But let's see. I can now, I'll highlight another piece of it, which is the /replace command here. So you see here, it doesn't know yet what the name of the resource group I want to do. It doesn't know yet the location I want to use. And so I have to kind of give it a little bit more information. So I'm going to run /replace here. It's going to recognize the placeholder values that I have to do. So test RG1. And location, East US. Sometimes it will give a dropdown and it will regenerate the commands. And so now it's more runnable where these variables actually have commands here. So yeah, This is on a specific tenant, so I'm not going to be able to actually execute it. Where is my Windows VM? I hid it because it was causing me troubles earlier. But I'll show kind of, this one is on a more specific tenant here, and it's going to help me out with these commands here. Can you create a new resource group and a new application insights instance? I'm just going to grab a big command here, and you can see it kind of will generate a more end-to-end scenario here. And it gives me both options, kind of creating a resource group with PowerShell, with CLI here, and I can learn about it more. I can say, hey, what is App Insights? I can ask more generalized questions as well that I may not, I can go to Google as well for, but it's a little bit easier here to just ask, what these kind of questions are about Azure here. And it gives me a pretty comprehensive overview and a bunch more links into Azure documentation for me to get my help at. And yeah, that's great and dandy. But what about generating, longer scripts? What we have done is actually integrate a lot more with the GitHub Copilot for Azure. So if you have GitHub Copilot, you can download the GitHub Copilot for Azure extension, and it will have a lot more high quality commands when it comes to Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell, and you get the power of GitHub Copilot with you. So I don't have enough time to demo it today, but you should definitely learn more at some of these aka.ms links. The key takeaway is we're trying to bring the power of Copilot in Azure wherever you work, whether it be in the Azure portal, AI Shell, or GitHub Copilot for Azure. Yeah, and that kind of wraps up a bit of my demos around AI Shell. I did, in the session title, I did talk about AIOps, and to be honest, my definition of AIOps when I submitted this paper has completely changed to what the definition of it is now. So I had to kind of rework it a few weeks ago and think about what's going on. But I did want to give you guys a little bit of an idea about what AIOps is. And so, yeah, first of all, what is AIOps? AIOps is kind of a strategy, and it's a definition that changes a lot. I really thought it was going to be more managing these models, managing these tools, kind of operating against them. But it's really about using artificial intelligence to automate, streamline, and optimize the IT service management and operational workflows. This was a definition by IBM, but you can think of it as like how you can use AI to help accelerate things like incident management, things like, remediation tasks. These are a bunch of just generalized scenarios that you can think about with using AI Shell or other AI clients to help you create PowerShell scripts to do some auto remediation, check disk space, and do some log warnings, log pattern files, etc., security alerts. These are just a couple of ideas that we were coming up with when coming up with this. But yeah, I know it's late in the day, so I'm going to kind of wrap up here, and I'm already over time. But here's kind of the takeaways. If you want to try out AI Shell for yourself, or you want to try it out for your team, you can go to aka.ms/AI Shell, and you'll find all the information you need to download the tool. We're completely open source, so if you have an issue with it, or if you have an opinion to share about it, please do. We are on GitHub. We're very active in the GitHub space, so please give us some feedback. It's in public preview right now, so we know it's a little buggy and things are definitely subject to change. There's a bunch of known limitations we have. It's a preview, so we're still working on it. What are we looking at for next steps for AI Shell? Actually, just this morning, I got a message from my engineer reviewing a PR about MCP support. So you probably heard in the keynote, MCP is the Model Context Protocol. We are now going to be able to support it very, very soon. And we're exploring better on how to better assist you when you need it in the shell. We're exploring more agentic approaches and kind of asking the question, what else would help you in the shell or otherwise with AI assistance and AI acceleration? That's just kind of an open question here that I would love for you guys to think about and come talk to me, after. But yeah, that kind of wraps up everything. Did want to leave, I got 10 minutes now for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions or anything they'd like for me to clarify, yeah, please ask. Yeah, go ahead. Great question. So the question was, is iTerm2 a prerequisite for AI Shell on Mac? And it is. So you can only use AI Shell in iTerm2 on Mac. It does not work in the default terminal that comes with Mac. That is one caveat. Thank you. Yeah. So it will have whatever the OpenAI models have. So it may know some knowledge about things like the exchange models and things like that, but I cannot guarantee you it's going to be correct. It's going to be the same exact thing as if you were going to go to OpenAI or ChatGPT online and ask that question about the exchange module, for example. It very much can hallucinate, and so we do encourage you to be mindful with at least the generic OpenAI one. For the Azure one, we very much do rigorous quality testing and grounding. So all the commands and all the scripts that generate from the Azure one will be syntactically correct. You'll still have to fill out some of the parameters and stuff, but we've definitely had a big priority for making that highly good quality and not hallucinate. So yeah. Yes. So the question was, will I be able to access previous runs once you close the shell? Currently, that's not available today. Once you kind of close the shell, your session will close itself. That's something we can look into too, if that's an experience that you'd like. We kind of think of it as, you're closing the X, you're starting fresh, you want to start over again. And sometimes it's actually better to start fresh so you don't have the previous prompts and chat helping muddy the responses. So, but currently right now, if you close the shell, none of the previous chats will be saved in AI shell. Cool. Any other? Oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question was if you would like to give it more knowledge about your environment, such as like modules you have installed, right? So it doesn't know that natively. You can definitely pass information to it that way. So if I were to do something like, another thing you can do with AI shell here, dang it, doing the thing again. Oh, and it went away. I have too many windows. This is bad. You can use invoke AI shell in a pipeline. So you can say something like get module. I'm trying not to get too many modules. Well, let's just see how many modules I have. I think, okay, it's not going to be that many. So I can say, so I can say, like, I can pass that information there. We don't currently do anything without your consent because we do know that there could be like personally identifiable information in things like your chat history or even your modules, technically speaking. Like, we want to be very mindful about the information that we're sending to these models, especially because you don't know necessarily what Google Gemini is doing, what OpenAI is doing with your data. And so there is, although we really encourage, the lack of sensitive information in the shell, there's still always going to be an accidental password being leaked, or your name and stuff like that. So we want to be very, very mindful in that scenario. But if you have the Azure OpenAI one and you don't feel a problem with that, you can do a lot of things with this where you can actually run scripts and stuff on startup and give it as much information as you want. We're treating it as like a PowerShell kind of command as well, so you can give it as much as information as you want, like on startup, for example. So, yeah. Any other questions? Cool. Well, I know it's very late in the day. We can end off here. Thank you so much for coming to my talk, and have a good rest of your evening.